Alright guys, welcome to Flav Orellana's MMA show. I'm your host, Flav Orellana, brought to you by Four Corner Sports. Alright guys, so this is episode 14. We just ended up concluding UFC Vegas 13, headlined by Glover Teixeira and Thiago Santos. Now, there was a lot of hype going into this fight a week prior to the fight happening. All that hype ended up going away due to the fact that Dana White ended up announcing the week prior that Jan Blachowicz was going to end up facing Israel Adesanya for the light heavyweight title. When is that going to happen? Who knows? Jan Blachowicz says that he is willing to fight in March. He's not going to fight anything earlier than that because he is going to be having I believe he said his firstborn child coming around December. So he wants to spend the holidays with his wife, with his family, with his new child. It's totally understandable. But I don't, like I said in the previous episode, I don't understand why Dana White ended up announcing the fight, that type of news a week before the Thiago Santos Glover Teixeira fight. But it ended up happening, so we ended up losing a lot of lackluster with the fight between Glover versus Thiago. But with that being said, look, that fight was, in my opinion, one of the better fights on that card compared to everything else that was offered. Because, the card itself, if I really had to give it a grade, it wasn't that great. I wasn't too appeased on rewatching it again. It's not my favorite card has happened. It sucks. We ended up losing Ian Heinisch and Brendan Allen, because one of them had tested positive for COVID. I was very excited at one point for Tanner Boser versus Andrei Arlovski, but that was a snoozer of a fight. I didn't expect anything like that. I don't know if Tanner Boser was gun shy. Arlovski made Boser end up fighting his style of play. But so we'll just cap it off with Thiago Santos and Glover Teixeira. So Thiago Santos' first fight, I don't know, what is it, 16 months, 18 months? He last fought John Jones in July of 2019, International Fight Week. And many people speculated that Thiago Santos won that fight. I was one of those that was leaning more towards John Jones. I felt like John Jones did enough, but one judge out of the three saw that Thiago Santos won the fight between Jones and Thiago Santos. So, and in that fight, whatever could have gone wrong on Thiago Santos' left leg went wrong. This guy had like a torn MCL, had a torn ACL, LCL, you name it. This guy's knee was just hanging from a thread. And this guy had serious damage. I think he fractured his tibia, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, this guy's leg was destroyed. Took a little bit over a year and a half on trying to recover, and wants to get back into the mix, competing for a title. Understandable because when this guy was healthy, this guy looked like a problem, and he came through a roadblock against John Jones just like everybody else when you fight at 205. But John Jones is no longer there. So now that the belt is up for grabs, even though Jan Blachowicz is the champ right now, Jan Blachowicz, as of right now, we don't see him as being a champ like John Jones, making, 15 title defenses, 14 title defenses. But Thiago Santos Glover Teixeira was supposed to be the number one contender fight, to see who gets the next crack at to fight Jan Blachowicz. So first round, Thiago Santos drops Glover Teixeira. Glover Teixeira looks like he's about to be done in the matter of the first 2 minutes, and Thiago Santos going at work, elbows, punches. I think he almost punched Glover in the back of the head at one point. But then Glover falls forward, in which he should do, grabs both legs and takes Thiago Santos down. Now, Thiago Santos looked like he had no business being on the ground with a Glover Teixeira. Glover Teixeira is a black belt in BJJ. And I gotta say, I mean, Glover did his thing. I mean, he felt more comfortable fighting on the floor, in which that's his fighting style. Thiago is the type of person that he wants to take your head off, if he's fighting, on a stand-up game. But man, the next two rounds after that was just pretty much like the same thing. Thiago Santos was on the floor. Glover Teixeira is dominating the ground game. And, you saw what Glover Teixeira ended up doing towards Anthony Smith. I mean, beating the brakes off of him. Vicious ground and pound. That's what Glover Teixeira does at 41 years old. I mean, this guy looks phenomenal. I hope that I'm in great shape like that when I'm 41, when that day does come. But, yeah, man. I mean, I see what Thiago Santos had to deal with, and it was unfortunate. First fight back, gets beaten up by Glover Teixeira, gets forced to tap out, and any hopes of him getting another title shot right away has gone out the window. Good thing for Glover, his win streak continues. I think, what is he on, a 4 or 5 fight win streak? For 41 years old, he knows this is the end of the road. He knows that he doesn't have too many more chances left. And if he loses one more fight, then, it's back at the line. Yeah, so he beat Thiago Santos, beat Anthony Smith so far this year. Last year, he ended up beating Nikita Krylov. He beat Ian Kuntzabella. He beat Carl Roberson in 2019. His last loss was against Corey Anderson. So yeah, he is on a 5-fight win streak. Last loss towards Corey Anderson. And now the question is like, what do you do if you're Glover Teixeira? Do you wait it out, or do you want to fight somebody else? I mean, you have Alexander Rakic, who's in the top 5, and I'm pretty sure that he wants to have a crack at somebody in the top 5, considering that he ended up beating Anthony Smith. But if I'm Glover Teixeira, I'm staying put. I'm not taking any more fights. He's, being 41 years old, knowing that one more loss is going to take him, to the back of the line, and it's going to be almost nearly impossible for him to, get close to another title shot if he loses. So I would just wait, get myself in shape, make sure that if anything is to happen, between Adesanya and Jan Blachowicz, that you're ready and you can take the fight as soon as possible. Get yourself into shape. Because, look, Dana White is going to try to make sure that, Izzy versus Jan Blachowicz happens. But this is something for Dana, for him to use as leverage. Like, hey, I can't offer you this amount of money to Izzy. You probably tell that to Izzy, I can't offer you this amount of money because Glover will take this much. And if you won't accept it, at this rate, then I'll just go to Glover Teixeira. So, in my opinion, and in a lot of people's opinion, I feel like a lot of people would want to see Jan Blachowicz fight, defend his title against somebody that's in his division, as opposed to somebody from middleweight moving up, because we want to see what type of champion he is, and let him fight Glover. I mean, sure, it's not going to draw many eyes towards people that don't really, pay attention to that division. Those are not two household names. I mean, Israel Adesanya is a household name. I mean, this guy, maybe outside of Jorge Masvidal, outside of, a Conor McGregor, he's like right up there. He's definitely, in my opinion, like top 3. No, I would say top 4. Yeah, definitely top 5. Definitely top 5. Because obviously you have your Khabibs, you have Conor McGregor, John Jones, Jorge Masvidal, and Israel Adesanya. Those 5 right there, there's no debate on it. I mean, those are like the 5 most famous fighters that fight for the UFC right now. So, you have Jan versus Glover. It's not that crazy amount of attention. Sure, people are going to want to see, what Glover does, but and what Jan does. But that's just that's something for Dana White to say, hey, we can at least use something like this. But as for Thiago Santos, I mean, I guess, he's going to have to just sit back and wait to see, the winner or loser. And I guess he'll fight between Dominic Reyes and I know Dominic Reyes has an opponent coming up, I think in February. So far ahead, but yeah, Dominic Reyes. Maybe he'll fight Dominic Reyes. And yeah, or maybe Alexander Rakic. I know I just said his name before, but those are two opponents that I would like to see him fight. Alexander Rakic, he looks hungry. He looks like he wants to be a champion. I think this guy might be a champion coming up soon. But Dominic Reyes versus Thiago Santos, that should be a good one. That should be a good one. All right. Moving on. So we had a couple of things. Valentina Shevchenko, the bullet. This lady, she's a scary woman. This lady's a problem, man. I mean, many people think that Amanda Nunes is the GOAT. In my opinion, I think Valentina Shevchenko is giving Amanda Nunes a run for her money, because Valentina Shevchenko is so underrated. So underrated. And she says that the fight that she would want that makes the most sense is Amanda Nunes. Now look, not too many people in the world want to fight Amanda Nunes, alright? Amanda Nunes spars with guys at American Top Team, and she holds her own. And she sometimes, if not for the most part, she beats up on those guys. So the fact that Valentina Shevchenko wants to have a third fight, and look, she's even said it herself that the record book says that she ended up losing 2 fights. She's 0-2 against Amanda Nunes. I agree, the first fight she did lose. The second fight, I'm not in favor of that. I think the judges did rob her. I ended up rewatching the fight yesterday, and I had it 3-2 Valentina. With the 5th round, I feel like they gave the fight to Amanda due to the fact of those takedowns. And Amanda was trying to play it safe, but she wants a rematch with Amanda Nunes. And look, honestly, I don't blame her. I really don't blame Valentina. I mean, Amanda Nunes runs through everybody. I mean, her last fight against Felicia Spencer, it lasted, all 5 rounds. And Felicia Spencer, she's a tough cookie. I mean, she's not easy to knock out. I mean, she held her own against Chris Cyborg, but she was no match. She was out of her league facing Amanda Nunes. She lasted all 5 rounds, and honestly, it should have at least been stopped. I want to say in the 3rd round when they fought back in June, if I'm not mistaken. It was like early June. But when Valentina and Amanda fought those 2 times, I mean, Valentina held her own, and she was giving it to Amanda. I mean, she caught Amanda a couple times. Not more than a couple of times, many times clean. She was chopping at that leg, and Amanda couldn't have her way like she normally does with everybody else. I mean, she had her way with Holly Holm. She had her way with Chris Cyborg, although I feel like they should run it back just because that's something that should definitely be revisited if Chris Cyborg ever returns back to the UFC. She had her way with GDR, Drain the Randomy. I want to say the first fight more than the second fight. The second time, she ended up, taking the fight to the ground just because she wasn't going to stand toe-to-toe with Drain the Randomy. She had her fight with Misha Tate. But, everybody else, I mean, everybody else except Valentina Shevchenko, I mean, she hasn't had her way with her. It's not like she knocked her down. But, yeah, I want to say that Valentina and Amanda Nunes 3 should definitely happen. I'm one of those that say that it's tied 1-1 unofficially. But make it happen, Dana White. I mean, part of me does feel that Dana White does protect Amanda Nunes. And I get it. They're not in the same weight class. Valentina fights at 125. Amanda fights at 135, 145. More at 145. But definitely make it happen. I mean, I could see Valentina moving up. I mean, when she fought Amanda, I mean, she didn't weigh in at 135. She weighed in at 133 and a half. Amanda weighed in at 135. So make it happen. I mean, that's something, in my opinion, that needs to happen. It definitely needs to happen before one of the two fighters end up walking away. In my opinion, I do see Amanda walking away from the sport first before Valentina, just because Amanda has accomplished so much in her UFC career. So, I mean, that fight definitely needs to happen. I mean, there's not a lot of noise built up to it. It's only get asked to Valentina anytime that she has fought. I remember it was asked to her when she fought Caitlin Chukagian. I mean, she did what she wanted to Caitlin. I feel like after the Jennifer Maia fight, I would say I would like to see Jessica Andrade, because that's just a former champ. Jessica Andrade versus Valentina, and if Valentina gets past her, you gotta put the fight between Amanda versus Valentina. If not, then put Weili Chang, tell her to move up in weight to fight Valentina. I mean, there's not that many people that is very competitive with Valentina. I mean, she's in a class by herself. I think, she right now is number 2 in my opinion. I think in the UFC ranking, she's ranked number 3. What's it called? Pound for pound, women's pound for pound fighter in the world, but she might be number 2. But in my opinion, she's number 2. Amanda's number 1. Weili Chang is number 3. You got Dana White has to make a fight with either Amanda Nunes versus Valentina or Weili Chang versus Valentina. There's no other option after that. She gets past Jennifer Maia. She gets past Jessica Andrade. That's got to be the next fight. And time is collecting at this point. Moving on. So we had Amanda Nunes pull out of the main event for UFC 256 next month, December 12th. She was supposed to fight Megan Anderson. Now we don't know what's going to happen. You also had the main event for this Saturday. Islam Makhachev pull out versus RDA, Rafael Dos Anjos. And it sucked because, I mean, a lot of people were looking forward to Islam Makhachev fight. It was going to be the first time he main evented any type of card in his MMA career. But UFC scrambled around, and Paul Felder, is taking the fight on 5 days' notice. I mean, more kudos towards Paul Felder, because you know what? A lot of people would have never taken that fight on short notice. And I'll get back to what's it called, Amanda. I know I just mentioned Amanda, but what's it called? Paul Felder. There got to be more people like him. I mean, you have the Kevin Hollands of the world. You have the Hamzat Shemayevs of the world who are willing to take short notice fights. I would say Bobby Green as well too. But what's it called? I'm glad we got that settled, because I mean that would have been a disaster not having somebody to fight Rafael Dos Anjos. I mean, this is like the second, third time they're trying to book Islam Makhachev versus RDA, and unsuccessful. So I truly believe that this is the best possible backup that we have. So I wanted to get that news out of the way. Now getting back to Amanda Nunes. So now there is no 145 title fight, women's featherweight fight for UFC 256. That is officially cleared. There is no fight. Amanda's reasons, they were undisclosed as for why she's not going to be able to fight that day. Wish her the best of luck. Whatever it is, whether it's injury, family reasons, whatever, you name it, I totally understand. But does the UFC try to rebook that fight? In my opinion, I don't see a point on trying to rebook it. I mean, there is no real reason on why to rebook that fight. Just like I said, this even gives it more credence as for trying to get a Valentina Shevchenko fight. You get Valentina Shevchenko, versus Amanda Nunes. That's amazing right there. Or you have the options of rebooking the fight and then going on from there. But that would have to be for a different date. As for UFC 256, I mean, Dana White has plenty of options to play with. You have Tony Ferguson versus Michael Chandler, there has been rumors about that. You can also do Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal. You can also do that. It just sucks that, we can't have a Stipe Miocic fight versus Francis Ngannou because Stipe says he won't be ready towards March. It's very, very frustrating with Stipe Miocic. Honestly, in my opinion, I want Francis Ngannou to break his jaw and take that title away from Stipe, because for heavyweight, we kind of want somebody to constantly defend that title, every 4 to 6 months, not once a year. But Dana White is gonna have to scramble around. I'm wondering what's gonna happen. You have Tony who wants to fight. Put Tony Ferguson on that card. I think that card as of right now. I know Marvin Vettori is supposed to fight Jacare. I know there's still the co-main event of Peter Yan versus Aljamain Sterling. And as far as anything else, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with UFC 256. This really sucks. Thank God that that Amanda was able to give notice to UFC with like a month and a half left. But still, now we got to scramble around, making sure to see what's going to happen for UFC 256. So, but right now there's plenty of options to play with. There's, like he said, also I forgot to mention Angela Hill versus Tisha Torres, Mackenzie Dern versus Verna Jandiroba, Chase Hooper versus Peter Barrett, Billy Quarantillo versus Gavin Tucker. So it's a good card as of right now, but it's got to be a good main event. You can have Aljamain versus Peter Yan, but in my opinion, put in Tony Ferguson versus Michael Chandler. I don't care if it's a 3-round fight. Put in also Jorge Masvidal versus Colby Covington, and put it up for the BMF title, so that could be a 5-round main event. Right there, you put those 3 fights together, it's going to be an outstanding card right there. It makes the card a huge difference. I don't see them moving up Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, just because they already had said it was going to be for January. But at this point, look, Amanda Nunes is not on that card anymore. Dana White has plenty of options. I just gave him plenty of options right there. McMaynard, Dana White. If you were ever to listen to this, look, you have things to play with right there. You have options. So just listen to those options. I think you guys will be fine. And lastly, look, so we have, like I said, Paul Felder versus Islam Makhachev. Paul Felder replacing Islam Makhachev on the main event, and he's gonna be fighting RDA. I wonder how that's gonna go. This is gonna be RDA, coming down from 170 to 155. Will it be a catch weight? Will it be 155? Who knows? I didn't read too far ahead onto that, but I'm very excited for that fight. On that card, we're gonna have the return of Eric Anders. He's gonna be fighting Antonio Arroyo. You're gonna have Julian Marquez versus Sapner Bek Sarafov. Daniel Rodriguez, is gonna be fighting Brian Barbena. That should be an interesting fight at welterweight. Looking forward to that. Brian Barbena is always a good fighter to watch. Kay Hansen. I mean, look, the last time Kay Hansen ended up fighting, a guy ended up dropping 20K on her fight and betting on it, and that guy ended up making a ridiculous amount of money. But Kay Hansen, she's fighting Corey McKenna. Ashley Yoder versus Miranda Granger. Reese McKee. Now, that name sounds familiar, obviously, because Hamza Shamaya ended up fighting him in his second fight in the UFC. Reese McKee never landed a single punch at all. So I'm actually looking forward to seeing what he has to offer. I mean, Dana White said this guy's he's no scrub. This guy's a really good prospect. He's one of the better fighters in England. This guy's fighting Alex Morono. So, look, I mean, we'll see what happens. What's it called? Jose Quinones versus Louis Smolka. Good fights to look forward to at for the prelims. I'm gonna circle that in for you guys. That's a fight that I'm gonna be looking closely at. You have Miranda Marcos versus Kanaka Murata. I mean, I don't know why Ronda Marcos is still in the UFC. This lady, won 10 fights and lost 10 fights, so I don't know. I'm not too sure why that's happening. I don't know why she's still in the UFC, but that's that. Look, guys, so Valentina Amanda Nunes needs to happen. Dana White, put in Colby Covington versus Jorge Masvidal for the BMF title for December. Tony Ferguson is still available. Put him against Michael Chandler. And come on, guys, we got UFC 255, still in the books with headlined by Davison Figueiredo versus Alex Perez. Co-main event, The Bullet, Valentina Shevchenko versus Jennifer Maia. Brandon Royval versus Brandon Moreno. Joaquin Buckley versus Jordan Wright on the main card, along with Shogun versus Paul Craig. So that's going to be the next couple fights for you guys. After Felder versus RDA, you're going to have UFC 255. But that's it for me, guys. Alright, guys, thank you for listening in on Flav Orellana's MMA show. I'm your host, Flav Orellana, and I will give you guys an update on Twitter as for the fights that are going to be happening, any news, anything that's going to be reported. So just follow me on Twitter at Four Corner Sports New York, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Alright, guys, peace. Have a good one.